I'm a little ant man. I'm a little ant man.
I don't think that's the theme song.
But it'd be a good one.
Welcome to 'Cause We're Nerds, the podcast that covers trends and new releases in comics, movies, video games, board games, and much more. I'm your host, Zach, and with me is my co-host and cousin, Caleb.
Hey, everyone.
Join us today as our podcast shrinks in size to cover Ant-Man and the Wasp. Does the humor of the sequel match the tone of the first? Does this movie explain why Ant-Man was missing in Infinity War? And where does this land on our definitive list of MCU movies? Find out the answer to these questions and much more on this week's episode of 'Cause We're Nerds. Alright, Caleb, so just like Ant-Man needs somebody to get his back, we have two people to help get our back. My brothers, your cousins, Blaine and Tyler.
Hey, guys. Hey.
Good luck if you can tell them apart.
All right, Blaine, why don't you talk?
All right, this is Blaine. You might recognize me from a previous podcast.
That's right. So Blaine was on a podcast a couple weeks ago telling us about Star Wars and giving his insight on the EU and Han Solo. Yep, yeah. And Han Solo as well. And joining us, we have another Star Wars fanatic as well as MCU fanatic, Tyler.
Hey guys, I am new here.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so last night we all went to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. We were at a giant monster screen here in Minnesota. And what did you all think of it, I guess? Because we have no news to cover. Is that correct, Caleb?
Yeah, so there hasn't been a whole lot of news, but also since we've got 4 people here, we figured let's focus on the movie, have some good discussions, and hopefully that turns out.
That's right, and rock and roll with it. So first off, how do you all think this movie compares to the first? Let's start with the obvious one to talk about, which is the humor.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. I thought the humor was, they didn't redo the same jokes like a lot of movies do, but I thought it felt fresh to me. It seemed just as funny, if not funnier, than the first one.
Yeah, I had issues.
So, I can already tell, as we talk about this movie, 3 of us enjoyed the movie, 1 of us did not. As a listener, you can kind of, say, your goal is to determine who loved this movie and who did not. I agree with you, Tyler. I thought this humor was great. Luis stood out, again, as probably the most humorous person, but they had some really interesting bits that I thought took tones off of Deadpool 2, yep. If you've seen Deadpool 2. I won't spoil anything until we get into spoilers, obviously, but this movie was hilarious. I know at our end, Tyler, I heard laughing. Caleb and Blaine, were you guys laughing throughout the whole movie?
I was not expecting it to be as funny as the first one. I thought the gags would be just reused, but they kind of took them and put a new twist on some of them. Mm-hmm. They reused a few, I would say, but it didn't feel like it was just a, photocopy of the first one.
And for me, I laughed during the movie, but I felt that it was very obvious that this was not written by the same person. It didn't feel anywhere near as witty. And the stuff that they did that was new felt just like kind of stock. Like it was still kind of funny, but it wasn't anything fresh like the first one was.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I felt.
All right. So you thought it was more slapstick humor than maybe deep witty humor?
Not even slapstick, just like your basic comedy style humor. Whereas the first one, I mean, it was written by Edgar Wright, right? And so it had that really witty kind of humor that is specific to him. And even though Peyton Reed came in at the end, a lot of that was still in there. And I feel that way with the comedy in this movie and a lot of other aspects as well.
I agree. I think to a degree, like the first one definitely had Edgar Wright's handprints on it. You can definitely feel that and feel that this is definitely Peyton Reed's movie. I do think, though, the jokes of it, I think the new jokes, to me, they felt very fresh, new. Even though there's like one of them that reminded me of a Deadpool joke, I still felt that they had a certain twist to them that the way, at least for me, like I love Paul Rudd. And so the way Paul Rudd acts, I thought it gave it a good twist to it, a good, it felt fresh to me. It didn't feel anything that like, oh, I've seen this before or anything like that. Like, it felt very unexpected. A lot of the jokes did.
And I forgot to mention, we're right now going through a spoiler-free review. So Caleb will put these in the comment section.
Yeah, so the time codes will be in the comments.
So we're currently just going over a spoiler-free review. So if you've not seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, fear no evil. We will not spoil anything, but we will go into a spoilers after our spoiler-free review. All right, so after talking about the humor, without spoiling much, what did you think of the villain compared to the first movie? Because this villain isn't the same. It's not just another person in an Ant-Man suit, which is kind of what we got in the first movie.
I thought that was a good decision. A lot of times Marvel can put in their first movie, the villain's the same as the hero. They're just evil.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a good decision not to have, Yellow Jacket 2.0, where they are basically the same. So it made the combat a little bit different, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was very new, unique. I haven't seen a villain like this before. Though I wouldn't say this is a spoiler, but it wasn't focused more on the villain aspect like most superhero movies. It was more focused on the adventure aspect of it.
Yeah, there were things about the villain that you find out fairly early on in the movie that I wasn't expecting and I appreciated, but then there were some other developments that I thought, that wasn't needed, or that could have been done a little bit differently that I think would have elevated it really easily, like not major changes. I do think that the power set is interesting, but I don't think that they used it to the extent that they could have. I think that from a creative standpoint, in fact, this is kind of how I feel about the movie as a whole. They had a whole lot of opportunities, and in the first movie, when Edgar Wright was building that, he took advantage of all of those things and came up with very new and unique ways to visualize it. And in this film, they kind of just, again, went with a more stock option, more of when you think this thing's going to happen, oh, well, it's kind of going to happen like that. It's mostly going to happen like that with a very, very small twist, but nothing that I felt was groundbreaking, nothing that I was hoping to see from the movie, even though I wasn't even really looking forward to this movie.
Now, what I liked was how Peyton Reed focused a lot about the size aspect and ratio of all the different heroes, right? And so I talked about it way back in our Ant-Man podcast, is that my favorite part of the movie was when they were shrunk down in size, right? And I thought that Peyton Reed did an excellent job in Ant-Man and the Wasp, focusing on the Wasp when she's small, Ant-Man when he's small, and then adding different elements as well that went along with that. But not only the small ratio aspect from the trailers, you can also see that there are other aspects where we not only see how he shrinks, but also grows as well. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I disagree, actually. I'm probably going to disagree on a lot of the stuff in this episode. But for me, the scale I felt was done much more poorly than the first film. In fact, the only times I really feel the scale was done well is when he grew larger. The shrinking stuff just didn't work for me.
I thought it was fine to me. I didn't have any problems with the way it was shrunk or how he grew. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but I don't know if there was too many opportunities to do that. I didn't expect for this movie to have that. It already had groundbreaking stuff in the first one, and I would even say Captain America 3, Civil War, that one had it had him in there, but even that didn't have maybe him growing. But I don't know. It felt it was good. I didn't need that expectation of it.
See, for me, when the first movie ended, I remember talking about this. I was more excited for what the sequel could do with those powers now that they're established than what the first movie actually did. Because I really enjoyed the second half of that movie when he had all the powers and he was doing everything. But the first half was only okay for me. And so I was really looking forward to a movie where they exploited that for the entire film. And to me, they just didn't do that.
I think that they focused a lot more on the Wasp's power and her ability to fight versus Ant-Man's.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Sure.
I think that's really evident. In fact, for our listeners that don't know, this movie was originally just supposed to be an Ant-Man sequel. Captain Marvel, which comes out in March, was supposed to be the first Marvel movie that had the female hero's name in the title. they ended up changing this one to Ant-Man and the Wasp. And that's very evident in the film itself. There is a large focus on the Wasp. Sometimes, I think, to the detriment of the film.
Now, Caleb, talking about the film itself and kind of the plot, why don't you give us a quick spoiler-free synopsis of Ant-Man and the Wasp?
So this movie opens up with kind of a retelling of what happened in the first film, which is kind of new for Marvel. I don't think they've actually done that before. It was very reminiscent of Blade 2. And we kind of follow the journeys of Scott, Hank, and Hope as they attempt to go down into the quantum realm again and see if Janet Van Dyne is still there.
What did you guys think of the plot? Did you enjoy it? Or just thought it was pretty stable?
I thought it was decent. It could have been better, of course. I didn't watch it for like a great groundbreaking plot or anything. I just wanted some humor, have a good time. So yeah, the plot could have been better, but it was enjoyable.
Again, I have issues with this.
Caleb, I'm sensing that part of the table, there's some Edgar Wright fandom that wasn't lived up in the second one,
it's
and so
not
you're
even
bashing Peyton Reed to smithereens.
No, it's not even that. I think I've only ever seen like one or two Edgar Wright films. Like, I am not an Edgar Wright fanboy or anything. I just feel that this movie just did not... I didn't even have expectations, and it didn't live up to my non-expectations. Like, for me, the plot felt like they came up with this central idea, and that idea is good. I won't spoil that yet. We'll do that in spoilers. But that central idea of what the plot should be was good. And then they said, oh, that's not going to fill up the whole movie. So what do? We're going to throw in all these other distractions in the movie that don't really have anything to do with the actual plot of what they're trying to do. And so it just felt like they were wasting time and we weren't doing what we came to the movie to see or what the movie set up that it was going to do. And that kind of frustrated me.
See, that part I actually really enjoyed. I felt kind of a realism of you're trying to get something done, but there keeps on things coming in your way, keep on having roadblocks and whatnot. And it's like, it's normally not from what you're like, doesn't come off of what you're originally trying to accomplish. It's just like random things coming in at you all the time. That's just through life. And that's kind of reflected in this movie where there's just random things, just like, it's not super random, like it's continuous throughout the movie. And I like how that's consistent. And I felt that was fine to me. So.
Don't you guys hate when in life just a random mob boss tries to kill you?
Yeah, it's the worst. I do have to say that is my main complaint with this movie, that the plot doesn't necessarily drive forward. There's just random things that get thrown in, and I feel like they don't fit all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm with Caleb on this one.
It feels unfocused is really the issue.
No, I would agree with you. I think that is very valid criticism. Tyler, you're kind of out in left field on this one. I think we'd all agree with that, is that it's not focused at all, right? Which is strange because it sets it up so well in this kind of prequel short, 5 minutes where it sets up where this movie is going right at the beginning of the movie. So you're like, okay, here's my arrow. They just shot it off. I know where this movie is going. This is going to be great. And then they split that arrow 10 different ways and it's very confusing. So I would agree with that.
Well, here's the thing. I think the focus is the characters. The focus is always on these characters and what their path is going. Yes, maybe it does stray a little bit off of that course every once in a while, but I felt that that's what drew it through.
See, I don't think that's even true. I feel that might be what they were trying to do, but because all these other distractions were coming in, they weren't really character driven. And none of these distractions individually are a problem. It's when you bring them all in. I feel that maybe if you just removed one or two of them, it would have really, really helped the film. It would have made it more streamlined. It would have made it... Because, think back to the first one. The first one had different things going on, but it felt very streamlined. It felt like you could go from start to finish.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it made sense. This one is just not like that. In fact, I guess I'm previewing my opinions a little bit. This is probably the first Marvel movie I've come out of just really not caring for.
All right, but because this is a Marvel movie, we do have to talk about the action. If you're just going into this movie, you want to see some action happening, you want to see the shrinking and the enlarging or whatever. What was everybody's perception on that? Was it just an enjoyable movie if you threw the baby, the plot baby out and left the action bathwater? What do you all think?
Yeah, the action was good. Like you said, the focus is more on the Wasp. I like how they used her wings, the different way that she just moved her body, the way that you could tell that she has experience with just fighting. And so I enjoyed seeing her, the way that, they utilized her powers in that in those fight sequences.
And there were fun callbacks to the first movie. Like, I mean, it's in the trailer. Ant-Man's like, why didn't you give me those? And Dr. Hank Pym's like, well, I had them. I just didn't upgrade your suit because I didn't trust you, right? Yeah. And there's another scene where Hope does a kick, or Ant-Man does a kick, and he's like, remember, you taught me that!
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has some really cool callbacks to the first movie.
I think the action with the Wasp was really good, but I didn't really enjoy the Ant-Man action scenes. I felt like he was more there for the comedy, and she was there more for the action part of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And their team-ups, I just wish it would have happened more than it did in the movie.
Yeah, I feel that, again, the action is just lacking in this film. There are some cool moments, but I feel that all of the cool action moments, they put in the trailers. And I don't mean like the TV spots stuff. I mean like the 2 main trailers that they released in theaters to get people to see this. All of those really cool action scenes are in there. I mean, the knife run with the Wasp is in the trailers. You see that. And while they are very competent in the film, the action that they're doing, you can tell, like you said, the Wasp has been trained. She's been doing this. But the way it's shot is not interesting. It is, like, for the most part, the most bland way to shoot these action sequences. I'm trying to remember. There was one that cut around so much that it was almost hard to tell what was going on. And one of the keys to a fantastic action sequence is you don't cut, right? It's a single shot. Now, we don't see that a lot in Hollywood because that's really hard to do. And I understand that. That's fine. But you have to make sure that the way you're shooting it is still interesting. And for me, while some of it was, overall it just wasn't. Definitely the Ant-Man stuff was not up to par. The Wasp stuff was kind of all over the place, I felt. And, you bring up a good point when you mention that the Ant-Man stuff just wasn't great, because it almost feels like this movie is not an Ant-Man movie at all. It's a Wasp movie.
Yeah, I like how, in the Avengers movies, you can see them teaming up. You can see how, Iron Man would blast against Captain America's shield and it would, burst or whatever. They work together, and I would like to see that, where Ant-Man and Wasp team up together a little bit more and use the powers together to, utilize each other.
Mm-hmm. All right, so since we're kind of done with the spoiler-free section, if a viewer's listening to this and they maybe are on the fence of going to see this movie, where would you put this movie? I know, Caleb, you had a ranking. Why don't you go ahead and explain that ranking again, and then we will all rank it. And I can tell you right now, Caleb will be double thumbs down.
So my new ranking system that I introduced, I believe with Jurassic World, is the best is go see it in theaters. Then the next one down is see it in a cheap theater.
Or Tuesday night.
Or Tuesday night. Yeah, like a discounted time. The next one is Redbox, because it's cheap, super cheap. The next one is Netflix, because you don't want to pay for it.
It's free.
And then the next one, at bottom of the barrel, is just do not see this. And for me, for this movie, if you really, really loved the first one, go see it in theaters. You will probably enjoy this one. But if you were lukewarm, if you see all the Marvel movies, this is definitely a cheap theater for me. I would have been there anyway just because I see these, but knowing the quality of the film from my standpoint, definitely not worth a full price ticket.
All right, Blaine, what do you think?
I would say that if you want to go for the comedy, then go see it in theaters or a cheap theater. If you're looking for plot or action, I would probably just Redbox it or Netflix.
Oh, that's pretty low. All right. I would say if you're an MCU fan, if you watched Infinity War, if you like superhero movies, go see this in theaters. If you just like superhero movies, go see this in theaters. In fact, I kind of want to go back to the theater and see this a second time.
Oh.
Yes, because I really enjoyed this movie. So I would say definitely it's a movie theater. If if maybe you're on the fence and you don't really go to superhero movies, maybe a cheap theater, but I would still definitely see this in theaters. Rounding us out, Tyler, what did you think?
Yeah, I will definitely see this again. If you love Paul Rudd, if you love just comedy, if you love superhero movies, all the above, go see this. It's gonna be good. If you like the first Ant-Man movie, I would say it's very similar to that. If you just enjoyed that, you're gonna enjoy this one. If you thought, again, like Caleb said, you're gonna be lukewarm on that, you're probably not gonna enjoy it as much. But it is a decent MCU film for anyone, I feel like.
All right, so that means we are now jumping into spoiler territory. So when this movie first starts out, we actually get an answer right away why Ant-Man kind of wasn't with the whole group during the during the invasions and everything else that was happening. We also get an explanation of kind of how Hope and Hank's relationship has gone, as well as Pym's.
Yeah, I thought this was really weird. Like I mentioned earlier, they pretty much explain the entire events of the first movie and also what happened to Janet. The way they did it, I understand why they did it. It's very important to understand the plot of the movie and why things are going on, but it was weird. And also, the audio in our theater was really quiet. I don't know if
It was really quiet.
Yeah. And so, this whole thing is being narrated, I think, by Hank Pym. Mm-hmm. And it had this weird echo to it that didn't feel like it was supposed to be there. And I don't know if that was our theater or if it was something they put in the movie. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
This was the same theater that zoomed in on Solo.
Yeah. Yeah. So because of that,
I'm not going back to this theater, okay, guys?
Yeah, I think it was in the film because like when they cut away from it, it was just normal. So that was really weird.
It was like a dream sequence almost, like he was telling it. I thought it worked. I mean, except I knew instantly because they added that effect that, okay, this is the past. He's explained something, to Hope currently, and he's just recapping all of this. But I mean, we do find out that Ant-Man has been under house arrest, that he made kind of an agreement through the Sokovia Accords with the German government and S.H.I.E.L.D. that he was going to remain under house arrest for 2 years and then probation for another 3 years.
Yeah, can I just say something about that real quick? So, one of the things I really liked about this is it was a little bit, like, self-aware of what it was.
That's true.
And when, like, they explained all of that, and the way they did that was there was this cop character, and he came in, to check on Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, and he saw his daughter there, and he explained to her, he was like, oh, this is just like, I don't remember what example he gave, and then he goes on to just explain this entire thing, like, super complicated, and she's just, like, so confused, but, like, explains it to the audience. It's, like, it's stuff where, like, it knows it's gonna be telling the audience it, but it gives it, like, so it makes it funny, and I enjoy it. And it's like that throughout the entire movie, and I will say, how they do that.
I enjoyed that FBI character.
Yeah.
I've seen him in, I think it's Fresh Off the Boat is the show.
Yeah,
he's on. Yeah. I think he's really funny. There's some times in this movie he doesn't quite land the jokes, but overall, I really liked him.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite new characters.
But when we do start this movie, we do see that Scott Lang and Hope are not together.
No.
Blaine,
that
where are
shocked
they?
me. Yeah, Blaine.
They are.
Okay, go ahead, Tyler. Just take this. I'm done, guys. I quit. Cool your jets, buddy.
I love the movie, okay?
They are apart.
Very astute, Blaine.
All right, as you can tell, we got one cousin that won't shut up and the other cousin that won't speak.
Yeah, I kind of didn't like this as well because the reason why is it felt like we were going back to the first movie. So basically, Hank and Hope are upset with Scott because he went off in Civil War and did all that stuff in Germany. I get it. I get that they would be upset, but it was just annoying because at the end of the first movie, we finally got past them being upset with him, and we start here, and it's like we are right back there again.
I agree, but when they come back together, they seem to get past it pretty quickly. And I think, they're annoyed at him, but they also can't contact him because they know it would be bad for him. Mm-hmm. So I think it's half they're mad, but also half they know they shouldn't.
Yeah, and they've been on the run, right? So it explains that because of the Sokovia Accords, they have high-tech equipment, and they did not sign up for the Sokovia Accords, so they have been on the run.
Well, the reason they're on the run is because Scott used their tech in the battle.
Correct, yes. Yep, but they also still have tech as well.
Yeah, but that's not why. The reason why is because he used it.
Yeah, but if
he broke the Accords.
Yeah, but if he used it and they didn't have any like extra tech, then they would totally be fine. But because they are still storing extra tech, they have to be on the run. I mean, I'm sure if they had just given it up, given all their stuff up, then they wouldn't have to be on the run. But I mean, that brings us kind of to the main plot, is that they are searching for Janet Van Dyne.
Yeah, they can't get that stuff up.
No,
they need to find her.
who, in the whole plot of the movie, they actually find. Now, were you guys pretty, I don't know, like, amazed that they found her? How do you think they went about it? Caleb, why don't you kind of give us a brief kind of how they, I guess, ended up finding Janet?
So, it's funny you say that because you pretty much skipped the entire movie, which is the stuff that I was saying doesn't need to be there. But anyway,
basically the entire movie they're on the run, right? They're trying to find Janet.
Yeah,
Ant-Man's kind of helping them, and they're kind of on the run from this character Ghost. We meet a couple other characters who they run from, and then they find Janet. Yeah,
but so the way they do that is. Hank builds this like ship that can go into the quantum realm, and basically they get all this equipment and they go down there and they just find her. And what I thought was a fairly anticlimactic way to find her, they've been building it up for the whole movie, and then she's kind of just there, and she hops in the ship and hops out of the quantum realm, and that's really all it is. It's very simple.
And then she has sparkly fingers.
Yeah.
So and then she has powers.
That was really weird.
Yeah, they changed Janet, because in the comics she's the original Wasp.
Yep.
Just like she is in this movie, actually, but the timeline's a little shifted. What did you think about how they gave her new powers?
I found it to be a little weird. I thought it was okay when she was in the quantum realm, but when they took it out, like when she still had it, even though they were out of the quantum realm, I thought it just, I don't know, it was like, this is an easy way to cure Ghost and move on and whatever.
Yeah. What do you, Blaine?
I thought it was a little weird. They didn't really explain it other than I've been down here forever and now I have quantum powers.
Yeah. I felt it was lazy writing. Mm-hmm. I felt that it didn't have enough time to develop, and it was also really weird. Like, it came out of nowhere, and now I don't know if she still has those powers or if she used all of them up.
Don't think she does. Because at the end of the, in the post-credit scene, Ant-Man's going back into the quantum realm to get quantum healing energy. So I think she used it all up on Ghost, but Ghost still needs this to keep going at certain intervals. So that's why Ant-Man's going back to get some of this to give to Ghost.
Kind of talk a little bit more about her. I wish they just explained more about what she was doing while she was in the quantum realm. Maybe showed a little bit of her adventure, because they just showed her in this like really awesome outfit with this like sword thing that she made out of her wings, and they didn't explain any of that.
Yeah, like if they've given her 2 minutes and like on the way back, if Hank had been like, so what have you been up to? And then, she does like a little flashback of maybe what happened directly after she went into the quantum realm. And, movies have done that before where it's very brief. I think that's all we would have needed to have seen. And she didn't even need to tell us. We just need to be shown it. And it wasn't shown.
Or what would have actually been interesting is at the beginning of the flashback, make that a little bit shorter, but follow Wasp into the quantum realm. And then cut to the title.
I thought that's what they were going to do.
I did too. I thought they were going to show
as soon
a
as
little
she
bit
was
of what she was doing.
going more and more closer, I was like, okay, that's how they're going to start. They're going to show her a little bit.
It's only like 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you actually find she's alive.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been that shocking to find out, she actually lived for a little bit, and this is what she did to survive right away.
Yeah, the movie gets really quickly into the point that she is alive, and that's what the movie's going to be about. And this kind of goes back to my complaint. What I think would have actually been a much better and more interesting movie that would solve all of the issues we've talked about is, instead of making the movie a chase to get into the quantum realm, the entire movie is an adventure inside of the quantum realm.
I thought that's what they were originally going to go for, and so I do think that actually probably could have lended itself to be a better movie, but don't point at me like that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Caleb, because thinking about it, I think a better movie, while I did really enjoy this movie, I agree with you. And what would have been really interesting if they wanted to keep all that chase aspect in it is go ahead and do a Inception
I was just about to say
story,
that.
right? So have maybe Hank and Ant-Man or Hank and Hope go into the quantum realm, where on the other side, maybe Luis and Scott are like trying to evade all the bad people or evade Ghost. And that would have been a very interesting, tight-knit Arrow, right? Instead of kind of what the movie we got. Now, talking about Ghost, Blaine, why don't you give us her backstory? So, I mean, if you look at the trailers, it's this girl who dresses up in white and can kind of phase. But we find a lot about her in this movie.
Yeah. So basically, she was in an explosion. Her dad maybe stole tech from Hank and started his own company. They don't really resolve that. One person says one thing, one says another. Anyways, he shouldn't have been doing that, and it blew up. Ghost was the only one to survive of her family and all the workers there. But she started quantum phasing. And so they made this suit in order to contain it, help her control her powers. S.H.I.E.L.D. got a hold of her and basically made her work for them and kill people because S.H.I.E.L.D.'s not always the best. And they kept promising they would cure her, but obviously you don't want to cure an asset like that who can sneak in and just assassinate people.
Yep.
So when S.H.I.E.L.D. fell, she was on her own, not cured. And
Wait, so did they promise to cure her or to kill her?
cure her.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
It will kill you.
Okay, so in the movie, she says, she's like, they equipped me, they trained me to do espionage, kind of like a Black Widow character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's like, and in doing so, the trade-off was that they would give me what I wanted, which was like death. Is kind of what she said, I thought. And so she said, they said they would kill me.
No.
Is what I thought. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so they promised to kill you, so you just want to die. So why are you doing all of this? Okay, cure is a better plot line. Look at that. This movie's getting better by each second we talk about it.
So, you mentioned something about her father, who her father was. It was a cameo?
Yeah, so her father's Egghead.
Not just that he has like a head that's
egg.
shaped like an egg, which is true.
It's
Which is true.
That's the name of the villain in the comics. He's a guy with glasses, and he has a head, bald head that's shaped like an egg, like an actual egg, and he's the villain of Ant-Man. So they kind of toned that down a little bit and just gave him a bit of a cameo, because that would have been a bit extreme.
Yeah. I liked... So Ghost in the comics, I don't know a whole lot about Ghost. I do know that... I don't even know if it's a female in the comics.
It's a guy in the comics.
It's a guy, yeah. So he was in an issue of Spider-Man within the past 2 or 3 years, and that's really my only touch point for him in the comics. But basically his power is just you can go through things. I did like that they tied that into the quantum realm as a reason for the powers. I thought that was really interesting. I also liked how you found out fairly early after she appeared that this is like a curse to her. Like I found that really interesting. But then when they reveal that Goliath, whatever his name is,
Bill Foster.
Bill Foster, yeah. When they reveal that he's in league with her and they're kind of like villains together, I didn't really care for that. Like it was a big whoa moment when it happened, but then as that developed, it didn't feel like it made the most sense.
And I think that's one of my big complaints are the villains. I think the idea of Ghost, I love that they pulled this supervillain from the comics, right? And her backstory was kind of interesting, but then it stopped. I didn't find her motivation very clear. And I thought what was even worse than her was they revealed Bill Foster, which I believe he was in one of the snippets before, maybe like a TV spot.
Not that I know of. I think this is his first appearance.
So this was his. So this kind of got me by surprise. I didn't know Goliath would be in this movie. He is.
You mean yeah. Okay.
He was
the trailer.
He was in the trailer.
He was
Okay.
in the trailer.
So I mean, he is in the comic books Goliath, Bill Foster, and so they make him out here as he was a friend of Hank Pym's, and then it becomes very confusing because it's maybe that Goliath was doing stuff he shouldn't have been, but he never states that to be true, and then he helps Ghost, but he's very let's not kill anybody. So it's like he's like an anti-hero basically.
Yeah.
And it makes it out that like Hank Pym is a jerk, and that's about it.
Well, Hank Pym, from the movie point of view, has always been a jerk. Like, that's been very clear.
That's true.
And so what it seems to me like what I got from it is that they were both working for S.H.I.E.L.D. Hank didn't like what Bill was doing, and so he got him kicked off the team, just like he did with several other people. And so because of that, he went off and started doing his own thing. And then all the stuff happened with Ghost, where he took her in after S.H.I.E.L.D. fell, because he was also helping her at S.H.I.E.L.D. I think he might have even built the suit or helped develop the suit, which is supposed to help contain her powers and control them and alleviate the pain. It apparently doesn't do that very well anymore.
It used to, but I think her conditions worsened.
Yeah. Right.
I like how... Okay, so at first when they revealed he was evil or kind of working with her, which I do like, because I thought it was like, oh, they just had him in there for that one small bit. Like, I was hoping to know what they were going to do with him. So I like how they brought him into the whole movie. The first I was like, is he going to be her father? Like, I kind of was like, kind of expecting that, because that's a general thing that a lot of movies do. And I was glad that he didn't do that. That he was just a guy who kind of took her in and kind of, like, be the father figure for her. And so I enjoyed that she was always just, his goal was to help her. And where she was a little bit more of a villain than he was, because she just wanted to cure her pain. She was hurting constantly. That was her goal, and she made that very clear. Like, she would do anything to stop hurting. She's hurting constantly. And so that's why she's doing everything she can to try to get this, figured out. She's been dealing with her whole life, pretty much. And Goliath, I can't remember his name.
Bill Foster.
Bill Foster. He actually, he had some moments where he was like, okay, I'll help you, Hank Pym, kind of thing at the end. Like, he still has some, he wanted to help, he wanted to help people. That's what his thing was. Yeah. And because he helped grow up this girl, of course he wanted to help her as much as possible.
Well, but he is Morpheus, so.
I mean, true. You can't go wrong with Morpheus. So, I enjoyed this aspect. Yeah, I think this is one of my biggest critiques was, I think they had an interesting story. I would have liked that to be more fleshed out. I wanted to see more between Bill Foster and Hank Pym, with them working together, just talking, just having more conversations. That would have been interesting to me.
I agree with you that I wish they had focused more on those two. With basically Hank created them. It was Hank being an awful person that led to these two people doing what they were doing, and didn't focus as much on the mob boss who was trying to steal the technology. But they had to have him because they needed basically just minions to come fight Ant-Man and Wasp.
Can anybody rich not be a jerk?
Not in the movie.
Not in this movie. Now, what did you guys think? So during this movie, Ant-Man has issues with his regulator.
Yeah.
And he has two suits. He has one suit that's kind of in a beta version, and he has another suit that he kept, which was kind of a running joke as well. But part of this humor in the movie is that he has issues with his regulator, so he can't always control it. So sometimes he goes big, sometimes it goes small, and this is where the Deadpool 2 kind of a joke gets in, right? Is that he comes in and he's half the size in the elementary schools. He was like a kindergartner.
That was so great. I love just that play of the different sizes that they had throughout that entire scene.
I was sitting there after the movie trying to write down notes on my phone, and obviously I had a lot of issues with this movie, and I came to that idea, and I almost wrote it down as a negative. But I actually liked it a lot. There were some really funny moments. I feel that it was a little overused, I think, is maybe my issue with it. They relied on it too heavily as a joke. Because as a joke, it happens maybe 4 or 5 times, I think.
Yeah.
3 or 4?
3 major times, and then it's sprinkled in some other scenes.
Yeah. I did have a problem, though. I'm still confused. Maybe you guys can answer this. So he had this old suit. When he got back, it was like, yeah, guys, I have my old suit. And they got his old suit. Why didn't he just switch to his old suit that actually still worked?
They had to use it to track Janet's position in the quantum realm.
Yeah, they took it apart.
Which made zero sense. Because all of a sudden, they finally find Janet, and then she can only be there for 2 hours, and then...
that thing was confusing.
I realize it's a movie thing, but... that really bugged me that, okay, well, now we're on a time schedule, 2 hours.
Again.
Same with Ghost. Only 2 weeks to live.
These distractions that don't mean anything. Half of this movie, I promise you, is technobabble. That means nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And that is only there to create limitations, but they're bad limitations.
They say quantum so many times in the movie.
I mean, they even say that in the movie. It's like,
That's
you're just
right,
saying quantum in front of it.
Scott Lang even makes a joke about that. And we had talked earlier about, not being able to see Ant-Man as much doing his thing. And I think part of that is because of the Regulator. They use him so much as a joke with the Regulator that in those scenes, while he's still accomplishing the task, he's doing so kind of as Ant-Man, but not really.
Yeah.
Versus if they had only used that maybe once, maybe twice, then you would have seen him more using the ants, shrinking, growing,
using his
battling,
powers
using
that we
his
were
powers.
missing. Yep.
Yeah, that you were missing kind of throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. I just had a thought and it just completely left my head.
Ghost, are you around here?
So can I say something?
You
Yeah.
cannot.
So anyways, the heart of the movie for me was kind of the relationships between it. And instead of this, we have a lot of these problems with the storyline and all that. It's more of, which we haven't touched on as much as like Cassie, the father relationship between Cassie and Paul Rudd and Scott Lang. And that relationship really, from the beginning, that just, captured me. I loved Cassie in this so much. Like, the first one, she was adorable. She was in it, a little bit. This one, she had a little bit more of a role. And she was just great. I loved it. I loved the relationship between them. And then just the rest of the family aspect. That's, the heart of the movie that, that's, the thing that I just, grabbed towards and loved. And that kind of helped drag the movie a little bit more for me. That's kind of what carried it for me.
You kind of said family. I think it was more partner, right? Because we had the daughter, father, then we have the Ant-Man Wasp, and then the whole point's to find the mom so that it's Hank and Janet.
True.
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of disagree. I think it's more family because while there is the Scott's Hope thing, that's not really focused on. It's kind of like an afterthought. It's really more about, like you said, the daughter, the father, and then the husband and the wife and the daughter and the mother.
So it's these two families and the whole family aspect. And that's kind of what, even from the very beginning, you see them as, you see the Wasp as a little girl and, them as a family as a whole. And that's kind of drawn through the end where they're a family again.
Because, that gets paired at least 3 times with, Scott, Cassie, Janet, and Hope. Yep. And then Bill and Ava.
Yeah. I think that stuff is the strongest stuff in the movie, but I don't feel we get enough of it.
I thought it was fine because it was sprinkled throughout the entire movie to me, but
I wish we had gotten more of that and less gangster mob.
That's
chases.
okay. I will say, Caleb said if you would take out one thing, the gangster mob thing, if you took those characters out, I think that would have helped a lot. Because them, I barely even remember. I'm just like, oh yeah, there's some evil guys chasing them, and they weren't that interesting. They were kind of dumb. And
the only reason I remember them is because I know the actor.
Yeah, I recognize the actor, but...
Sure. Now, did any of you ever think this movie was going to take a really dark turn? I was expecting something really bad to happen with Ghost. Now, she does this a couple times. At one point, she puts her hand into Hank's kind of throat so that he stops talking. I think Scott makes a joke like, what are you going to do? Phase into my heart and squish it, right? And so especially when the reunion, when they found Janet, I was expecting Ghost to put a hand through somebody and then stop phasing or something completely pretty bad. And that never happened. While she was bad, she never seemed super evil, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I thought she was going to kill Bill Foster at the end, and then I thought she was going to kill Hank at the end, and then Janet at the end. So I kept thinking she was going to, do what Zach said.
I thought there was a little foreshadowing, with her hand through Hank's throat. I thought he was, she was going to come back, or Hank was going to die by the end, but...
the only time I felt like that was when her hand was in Hank's throat. I thought she was going to kill him right there. Yeah, or I thought she already had, crushed his windpipe or something.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I agree with the foreshadowing, too, because Hank, I believe, before he goes into the quantum realm, says something along the lines of, I'm ready to die. And so I was like, okay, we've almost seen him die. He says that. And it probably is building towards what I would agree with you, Caleb, that non-amazing scene where he finds Janet. It's he's going crazy, and then he finds her. Yeah. But it's is that Ghost? And everybody in the theater knows it's not Ghost, it's Janet. And then he finds her, and the group is back together. All happy.
Yeah, for 3 minutes.
For like 3 minutes, which brings us kind of to the mid-credit scene, right? So the group's back together, everything's okay, the business is booming with Luis and everybody else there, everything's kind of happy, right? And then we go to this on top of a skyscraper, and they're entering the quantum realm again. Blaine, you talked about this, to get quantum energy to heal Ghost.
Yep.
And so Ant-Man goes into it, and everybody's there, right? And then I thought like somebody would have vanished then. Nobody did. But then it's while Ant-Man's in the quantum realm, people die, and I thought maybe one of them would pull him back. No! They all had a 50-50 shot, and unfortunately for Ant-Man, while he is stuck in the quantum realm without somebody to pull him back, all 3 of his family members, well, I guess not 3 of his family members, but we got the Van Dynes have all died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But-
dusted.
Dusted.
Yeah.
Snapped. They all...
Oh, snap!
Yeah, I was expecting at least Hank to do that. Like I don't know if you guys saw it. We did a live video. It's kind of bad. Before we saw the movie. And my prediction was that Hank was going to turn to dust. I wasn't surprised that they all turned to dust, except for the fact that I thought that it was confirmed the Wasp was going to be in Avengers 4, so I didn't think she was going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was between Hank Pym and the Wasp. I wasn't sure which one, but it ends up being both.
Yeah.
Blaine, anything to add?
Same to that. Although I did notice that they said don't get lost in a time warp.
Time
Yeah.
vortex. It's time vortex.
So that could be a way he could escape from the
That's
quantum
a good
realm.
point.
I think this really leads into Avengers 4, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm assuming it has to do with the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's able to escape somehow, I don't know if he'll use a time vortex to escape, but if maybe somebody pulls him out, he captured quantum energy. He has
I guess
that
he still
thing of
has that.
yeah, he has that with him, right? I think Avengers are going to use that somehow. So maybe they
Yeah.
can power it to get smaller, or to enter a time vortex and undo the snap, or do something. I think they're going to have to do some time travel, or do something in outer space, or quantum, or another realm, and that's how they're going to defeat Thanos in Avengers 4.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I know Kevin Feige said that scene is directly related to Avengers 4, which obviously, after seeing it,
Yeah.
I think he's going to get out. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
It's just how he does it. Now, I do have a question. I forgot to mention it earlier. So they find Janet, and Janet's super old in the quantum realm. They've talked about before how time moves differently in the quantum
I wondered
realm.
about that too. She should still be. I would think that she would be the same age
Yeah.
as she was when she came in.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that she seems to have aged the exact same pace as everyone else.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the time just moves differently inside your head. So maybe she felt like it was, 100 years versus the 20, 30 it was.
Yeah. I guess that could be.
That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, they decided they wanted Janet and they wanted her to be the same age. So
Yeah,
it's
don't
just
want to
a
be
movie-
creepy
It's a movie
or-
thing.
Yeah, and I was also watching, because I thought at one point they had shrunk somebody without a suit, which they said you have to have the helmet on to breathe.
Yep.
But I think every time they did it, they were inside of something that Hank had built. So I'm assuming that it has some kind of, like, that same tech in it so you can breathe. But I thought they had broken that rule a few times as well.
I didn't see any. Like, they were always in some kind of vehicle or
Right.
something. So, which, that reminds me of the cars. What do you guys think about the cars? Like, the shrinking of the cars and, like, all those Hot Wheel things?
Again,
It was fun.
the best parts were in the trailer.
I mean, they showed it once, which, I wish that wasn't in it, but, like, I thought that, because they had, like, a bunch of them or whatever, like, I thought it was interesting. Like, I liked how the idea, at least, of
Yeah, I really like the idea. I will give them
I like
that.
how they used it all. You're right. They should have kept that out of the trailers. There's a couple of things, especially the last credit scene.
Yeah, so since we covered the mid-credit scene, if
Yeah.
we jump to the last one, we sat there, waited for a while, only to see something that we've already seen.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was
An
so
ant
frustrating.
on the drum set. Like, it was okay, but they've showed this in,
Yeah.
I think, the second trailer.
Yep.
So we have already seen it, and that was a little frustrating. Like, I was hoping, I knew it'd be a funny thing,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I was hoping, like, maybe it would tie more into Avengers 4. Like, okay, maybe there's another superhero that lands, or here's Ant-Man's signal, or something like that.
I'm not upset that it didn't tie in. I'm upset that they showed it already.
Yeah, I have no
agree.
idea why they put that in the trailer. It makes no sense. Like, it actually would have been funny. Like, I would have actually laughed at that, but because it's like, as soon as I heard the drums saying, I was like, they're going to show the ant on the drums, aren't they? And then they showed it. I was like, this is
We've
so
seen
dumb.
this, yeah.
Yeah, it was really frustrating.
Now, at the end, they said Ant-Man and Wasp will return. Question mark. That's the first time they've added that in.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, they kind of have to.
They have
They've been saying, none of these heroes will come back, which is, we'll see, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ant-Man's not dead, so...
Yeah.
They could have, put him on 2 lines. Ant-Man will return. Wasp will return. Question mark. But I don't know.
You never know. All right, well, with us kind of covering all of Ant-Man, both the spoiler-free review and spoilers, we're now going to go into rankings. So Caleb and I are going to first go off of our ranking of MCU movies. This is not our definitive list, but our individual list. So Caleb, why don't you start and I'll follow up. And Blaine and Tyler are just going to give us their top rankings off of the definitive list. They'll kind of tell you what they'll do, but they'll do something.
Yeah, so for me, as you guys can tell, I had a lot of issues with this movie. I'd mentioned that I was more excited for the sequel than the original after I saw that. And while that was true then, my expectations for this movie just were nowhere. Like, you guys asked me, and I said, I'm not really excited to see this movie. I'm going to go see it, but it just didn't meet any expectations at all. I feel it was... The pacing was okay, but it was poorly timed. It was not direct in its plot. It was very kind of going all over the place. And we didn't talk about it. I think this the special effects in this movie actually are pretty shaky in some areas. Like, there are some areas you can clearly tell that it's a green screen and it does not look very good. So, is it a worthy follow-up to Ant-Man? I guess. It's just okay. So for me, I look at my list, and Ant-Man I already have ranked at number 16 out of the 19 movies that were out when we did this. So it's already pretty low, and I rank it lower than the original Ant-Man. In fact, under Ant-Man, I have Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 3, and Iron Man 2. I would rather watch all of those before I watch... before I watch this movie again. So this was going at the very bottom of my list. Number 20. This is Marvel's 20th movie, but unfortunately, it is not the best one.
So if you were tied down to a chair, your eyes, like Clockwork Orange, were split open, you would rather sit through Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 is
The
good.
Incredible Hulk.
I mean, we talked
Iron
about it.
Man
I
2.
enjoyed those movies. They were just the worst out of the bunch. But this one... maybe it'll be a case like Thor the Dark World, where I like it later, but for now, not a big fan.
Alright, so in my list, Ant-Man currently sits at number 10 out of 19, right? Infinity War's obviously still at the top. And so where does Ant-Man and the Wasp fit into this? Well, there's a lot of good stuff. It's funny. I thought the humor is way better than Ant-Man. I thought it had really good action to go along with it. I liked how they played with sizes. I liked how they showed a lot of the Wasp. I did like the powers of the Ghost. But, Caleb, you have some valid points. So does Blaine and Tyler. There's some negative stuff in here, including the plot is a little shaky. I didn't really like how they capitalized on the villains when there was a lot to capitalize on. And I didn't really like anything with Bill Foster, to be honest. I mean, I love the actor Lawrence Fishburne. And I think he did a great job. I just think it just wasn't well utilized. And so where does this go? Is this a good sequel to Ant-Man? Yes, I think if you just look at Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a step up. And so where does this go on my list? It's about smack dab in the middle. I would rather watch this over a lot of those other movies, Caleb, you said. For example, Thor is my number 16. I would rather watch Ant-Man and the Wasp over Thor any day of the week. And so where I put this is smack dab in the middle. When I have 20 movies, Ant-Man and the Wasp is my 10th, which means it actually ekes up above Ant-Man, which is my 11th, and beats some of these other movies as well.
Blaine?
I'm going to have to agree with Zach and basically put it in the exact same position. I'm going to tie it, basically equal with Ant-Man, and that falls about in the middle. So I agree with basically all of his points. There were some good parts about it, some bad parts about it. I like the comedy. Didn't like the action as much, but I'm going to put it in the middle as well.
Yeah, so we didn't actually talk about a lot of the CGI. I thought CGI was good. I like the de-aging of the characters. I thought that was one of the best we've ever seen.
Yes.
But yeah, I enjoyed this probably just as much as Ant-Man, if not more. And for me personally, Ant-Man is one of my top ones. It's in the top, third. So, like, because there's been, like, now 20 movies, I would say I would put Ant-Man the Wasp maybe at, like, 6, 5, something around there. It's just, I love Paul Rudd. I love these, it had, like, my kind of humor in it. I just really enjoyed it.
All right.
And there you go. Our lists of where Ant-Man and the Wasp land. Go ahead and go see it in theaters and let us know what you thought of it. Which brings us to our next segment of Whatcha Been Up To, where we talk about, well, what we have been up to in video games, movies, anime, board games, TV shows, and kind of anything else nerdy. Why don't we have one of our guests go first? Tyler, tell us, what have you been up to?
So, my mom actually introduced me to this app called Let Go. And if you know what Facebook Marketplace is, it's pretty much the same thing. You just put up something you want and you can buy it. Well, on there, I found a Lego set. It's a brand new Lego set somebody had up for sale. It was one from The Last Jedi, and honestly, I had no care to even have it. I'm a huge Lego collector, and it had BB-8 in it. I don't have BB-8 yet, so it was on more than like 50%, discount of that. So if you like collectibles, if you like Star Wars stuff, if you like Legos, whatever, that's actually a good place to find that people maybe will get it for their kids and their kids don't want it anymore or whatever. And you can get stuff that are like brand new even on there, and it'll be cheaper than in the store.
So what was the set you got?
It was BB-8, how he has the walker and he like rips out the wall and then he attacks, the people and they escape, with Rose and Finn. It's that.
So how much did you get it for? Was
I got it for $15. You can get it on Amazon right now for like $31.
Okay.
And even that's on discount.
Wow, nice. And did it come with all the pieces and the instructions and
It was
box?
brand new, completely sealed, everything.
Wow, that's awesome.
And what's the name of the app?
Let Go.
Let Go.
Let Go. Is it on Android and at iOS?
I know it's on iOS. I don't know about Android. I would
probably
assume, but
is.
Probably is. Okay,
Yeah.
Let Go. Look it up. Awesome. Blaine, what have you been up to? Or what you been up to?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I've been reading some of the reboot of the Marvel comics.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I've enjoyed a lot of those. Thor's been one of my favorites, I'd have to say. I enjoyed the previous arc with Jane Foster as Thor, and I think they've done a good job of transitioning back to having Thor be Thor.
Macho Man?
Yeah.
What happened to Jane Foster?
Macho Man.
She died and then became alive in, like, the next comic.
Wow.
So they really took, like, the no hero actually dies to a new level. Like, let's kill her.
Yeah.
And bring her back
She,
right
like,
away.
sacrificed herself. I'm like, wow, that was a good comic. And the next one, she's, like, at Valhalla, and Odin's like, welcome. And she's like, I don't want to die. And he's like, okay, Thor. Bring her back. And so,
Wow.
they brought her back.
So
like,
is
right
there
away.
another Thor then? Like, I mean, if he's still Thor, do they have, like, another comic with another Thor?
No, it's just the Thor is that comic.
Okay.
So, Jane Foster's in it, and they're just continuing on, but Mjolnir has been destroyed, so Jane Foster can't be Thor anymore, because that's how she was becoming Thor.
Mm-hmm.
And Thor just always has his powers, he just doesn't have an indestructible hammer, so his hammers keep breaking.
So what's kind of a plot, or why should, if maybe I collect comics or I don't, why should I get into Thor?
Well, it's only 2 comics in, so
Okay.
I can't definitively say.
But what's the
you
plot?
should.
What's kind of the...
Well, currently there's a big war between all the worlds with Malekith from Thor the Dark World 2 kind of leading it, and a bunch of the realms are fighting the other realms and trying to convince each other to...
That sounds a lot like the Dark World.
Is it better than the Dark World? For those of us who have the Dark World at the bottom of our lists.
Yes, it is much better because it's not... Malekith actually has, a little bit of history in it.
Okay,
So,
backstory, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Some comic books to read. Caleb, what you been up to?
Well, Zach, I've been here for most of the week.
Yes, you have.
So I had to think really hard about this. You introduced me to a new tabletop RPG called Star Wars Force and Destiny. and it was a lot of fun. For you guys at home, this is basically Star Wars D&D. It is, from my point of view, not having to manage the actual game itself. It was really easy to get into. Zach was the game master, so he can probably speak a little bit more to that side of it. But it was a lot of fun. Just sit around and talk and use force powers and attack people, and great time.
Yeah, what did you like about it the most?
Well, I kind of like tabletop RPGs in general, so that was already a good in for me. And then when you throw Star Wars on top of it, like that's just icing on the cake. It does have some different mechanics from D&D. Like there's the dices you roll. Actually, there's several different dices, and the way those play together, I really like that because it allows you to have more variety versus yes, you succeed, or no, you fail. You know, there's kind of some in between where you succeed, but maybe it's not as good as you wanted to, or maybe you succeed, but something bad still happens. And there's a little bit of that in D&D, but it's a lot harder to kind of gauge that. But that's built into this game a lot more, and I really like that aspect of it.
And what Caleb's talking about is the system that Fantasy Flight came up with. So they're the company that created Force and Destiny. They also came up with 2 other Star Wars tabletops, Age of Rebellion and Edge of the Empire. Now, Edge of the Empire is actually a current game session that I run with a couple people, including Blaine.
Yep.
And that's like Han Solo, Chewbacca, your bounty hunters. Age of Rebellion, your rebels. And then what we played, Force and Destiny, your Jedi, your Sith, and all that stuff. But the mechanic goes through all 3 of them. And so as Caleb talked about, you can succeed, but still have some failure, right? So maybe you're trying to shoot a blast door and you hit it, but you accidentally, close the mechanism and it closes the door like you wanted it to, but it also alerts the guards that you're there, right? On the other hand, maybe you fail. You're trying to shoot at some droids and you miss them, but in doing so, you hit the door behind them and it closes the door so no more droids can come into the factory, right? So there's a really cool mechanic built into that. And Caleb, you enjoyed it?
Oh yeah, it was really good. I'm looking forward to our next session.
All right, we'll have to do that soon.
All right, Zach, what have you been up to?
Well, with my wife out of town, I've been up to a lot. So I talked about, not only have I been playing that Star Wars game, but I binge watched the complete first season of Westworld.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
If you're not familiar with it, Westworld is an HBO show. I would say it's on par with Game of Thrones, maybe even better than Game of Thrones. It is basically this world where Blaine's trying to kill me right now because he likes Game of Thrones and he's never watched Westworld. But it's kind of I'm assuming it's in a future setting, and it is where these individuals have created a robotic westernized world. So it's, I mean, it's a park. It's like a Disney World, but an adult Disney World.
Yeah.
Where you have to pay, I think they state it somewhere in the movie. I want to say it's $40,000 a day to be in this park.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And in this park, you relive Western experiences. So you can drink a lot, you can kill people, you can do other stuff you could do in the West, Wild West, you go hunting, whatever, right? It has a lot of plot twists you don't see coming, and it ends spectacularly. And I'm excited to get into season 2 as well, because I don't know if I want to say this or not. It branches off that maybe Westworld isn't the only world. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so as someone who's seen all of season 1 and is currently watching season 2, it is phenomenal. It's actually based on a movie, which is based on a book, I think, it's the same guy that wrote Jurassic Park. Michael Crichton, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he wrote a book called Westworld, and it was made into a movie in the 70s, I think, which has a sequel called Future World. There was also a very short-lived TV show. This is a reinterpretation of all of that. It's really good. It is very, very adult. Very adult.
And much of that is that they're robots, they're androids, so they don't need clothing, right? Because they're robots. But they're still actors, so you see everything. They're humans.
Yeah, so don't watch this with your kids. That would not be good.
No.
It's HBO. That goes without saying.
Right.
That's right. Sometimes HBO is just HBO because they're HBO.
Right.
All right, and that is what I have been up to. So it was great, Blaine and Tyler, having you guys on this podcast. You will probably hear from both of them again. Blaine, if maybe another Star Wars movie comes out. Tyler, probably never.
Hey!
I'm just kidding. Tyler, if we might be doing a show on collectibles or especially Legos. Tyler would be the person to talk to. He is a huge collector and fan. And of course, as always, you will hear Caleb and I. And listeners, I just realized that Caleb is wearing a Dragon Ball t-shirt, which means his power during this podcast was over 9,000!
How did you just notice that?
Yeah, I literally was looking at all.
He probably just
Entire
wanted
time.
to bring it up on the podcast.
I just wanted to bring it up on the podcast. Let's be real. All right, Caleb. Well, just like Ant-Man needs his Wasp, or Scott Lang needs his Luis, we need Taylor Poole for his music ability. So go ahead and check him out at taylorpoolemusic.com. That's TaylorPoole music.com.
And please do check out our friends at CNC Power Hour over on Twitch. They stream Magic the Gathering and various video games. I think they're doing Kingdom Hearts right now throughout the week.
And Tyler Blaine, where can they find us on our website?
CauseWe'reNerds.com.
Yeah.
And how do you spell that?
CUZWERENERDS.
Why, yeah. Yeah.
.com. You heard it here.
Thanks for listening to 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay up to date with all the latest nerdy news and podcast drops by following us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can also leave us feedback or comments on causewe'renerds@gmail.com. That's CUZWERENERDS@gmail.com. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Have you ever wondered what is considered to be the top 100 board games of all times? Well, wonder no more as we dive into our board game collections to talk about top board games for beginners and experts alike. So set up your game pieces and join us next week for 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay nerdy. All right, so you guys have seen Tarzan, right? Like the animated Tarzan
The
one.
Disney?
Yeah, the Disney. The classic. The good one, all right?
Uh-huh.
So you know the band camp, the Breaking the Band, that one where the monkeys are in? All right, Blaine, start us out.
Boom.
Do pop she do and stop. If you haven't had cancer, you now will.
What? You can't have that in there. Well,
Cringe levels over 9,000.
And we're
Nice.